The whispered words hung in the air between them, charged with promise and danger. Ethan Parker clutched his coffee mug tighter, his knuckles turning white as he stared into the piercing blue eyes of the woman who could destroy everything he'd built. The single dad didn't breathe for seconds, his world tilting on its axis. Hey there, viewers. If you're enjoying this story already, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys like this one. Your support means everything. Ethan never expected his life to collide with billionaire CEO Sophia Winters. But fate had other plans when his 5-year-old daughter's medical bills threatened to drown him. Now, standing in Sophia's penthouse with a business proposition that felt increasingly personal, Ethan wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. I don't understand what you want from me, Ethan said, setting down his mug before his trembling hands could betray him further. Sophia moved closer, the scent of her expensive perfume clouding his senses. It's simple, really. I need a family for appearances, just temporarily. The board believes I'm too cold, too focused on profit margins to lead the company's new charitable foundation. You need money for Emma's treatment. We help each other. By pretending to be what? Your instant family? The words tasted bitter on his tongue. For 6 months. That's all. Her voice softened as she added, your daughter gets the best medical care money can buy. You get financial security. I get to keep control of my company. Ethan thought of Emma's small face, brave despite the pain, her stuffed giraffe clutched to her chest during hospital visits. He'd promised her mother before she died that he'd always protect their little girl. What choice did he really have? And after 6 months, he asked. Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. We part ways. No strings attached. But even as she spoke, something in her expression told Ethan this arrangement would be anything but simple. Emma took to Sophia immediately, which both relieved and terrified Ethan. His daughter's delighted laughter filled Sophia's sterile penthouse as they moved in, bringing chaos and warmth to spaces that had known only emptiness. Daddy, Sophia said I can have stars on my ceiling. Real ones that glow. Emma twirled in her new bedroom, her illness momentarily forgotten in her excitement. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching Sophia awkwardly pat his daughter's head. For someone so confident in boardrooms, she seemed utterly lost around a child. You don't have to do all this, he said later that night, after Emma had fallen asleep surrounded by more toys than she'd ever owned. Sophia stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights reflecting off her silhouette. The agreement was to make this believable. There's believable, and then there's. He gestured around the lavish apartment. Whatever this is. She turned, and for a moment, vulnerability flashed across her features. I never had this. As a child, I mean. My parents were too busy building their empire to notice me unless I was winning something. The confession surprised him. It was the first genuine thing she'd shared since they'd met. Emma doesn't need things, Ethan said gently. She just needs people who care. Sophia's expression hardened again. Well, I can provide things. That's what I'm good at. He wanted to argue but recognized the walls she'd built around herself. They were similar to his own, constructed from loss and disappointment, designed to keep others at a safe distance. Their first public appearance came 3 weeks later, a charity gala for children's medical research. The irony wasn't lost on Ethan as he adjusted his borrowed tuxedo. Stop fidgeting, Sophia murmured, straightening his bow tie. Her fingers lingered against his neck. You look acceptable. High praise, he replied dryly, trying to ignore how beautiful she looked in her midnight blue gown. Emma had stayed home with Sophia's trusted housekeeper, excited about her movie night with Mrs. Garcia. Ethan worried constantly about being away from her, but her doctors had reported improvement since starting the experimental treatment Sophia's money had secured. The gala buzzed with wealth and influence. Ethan felt like an imposter as Sophia guided him through introductions, her hand possessively at the small of his back. "And how did you two meet?" asked a woman dripping in diamonds, her eyes skeptical as they assessed Ethan. Before he could stumble through their rehearsed story, Sophia laughed, a sound he'd rarely heard. "He spilled coffee all over my favorite white blouse," she said, looking at him with convincing affection. "Then had the audacity to offer me his jacket, which was even more stained." Ethan played along, surprised by her deviation from the script. "In my defense, you were texting while walking. I was closing a multi-million-dollar deal. Which you still managed to do, wearing my horrible jacket." The woman seemed charmed by their banter. "Well, sometimes love finds us in unexpected places." Later, as they danced, Ethan whispered, "That wasn't our story." Sophia's body was tense against his, despite her outward grace. "Our prepared story was boring. People remember details, especially embarrassing ones. So I'm clumsy in this version?" Her lips quirked. "You're authentic. That's why she stopped herself. "That's why this is working." As the evening progressed, Ethan noticed how Sophia transformed around others, laughing, touching his arm, playing the role of a woman in love. Yet in quiet moments, when she thought no one was watching, exhaustion and loneliness shadowed her face. During one such moment, he found her alone on a balcony, staring into the darkness. "You're missing your own party," he said, offering her a glass of water instead of champagne, remembering she rarely drank. "It's not a party. It's work." She accepted the water with a grateful nod. "Always work. Is that all this is to you?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Her gaze met his, unreadable in the dim light. What else would it be? He had no answer that wouldn't complicate things further. Emma's 7th birthday arrived with unseasonable rain that matched Ethan's mood. The latest round of treatments had left her tired and pale, though she insisted on having her party as planned. "Sophia's coming, right, Daddy?" she asked as he helped her into her favorite purple dress. "Of course she is, sweetheart." But uncertainty gnawed at him. Sophia had been distant lately, working late and leaving early, their paths barely crossing. The small apartment they'd kept for appearances, and Ethan's pride, was decorated with balloons and streamers. Emma's friends from school would arrive soon, along with their parents who still regarded Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and pity, the struggling single dad now dating one of the city's wealthiest women. When the doorbell rang, Emma raced to answer it, expecting her first guest. Instead, she squealed with delight as Sophia entered, drenched from the rain but carrying an enormous wrapped package. "Sorry I'm late," she said, setting down the gift to accept Emma's hug, seemingly unconcerned about her wet designer clothes against Emma's clean dress. Ethan watched in amazement as Sophia seamlessly joined the chaos of the children's party, helping with games and cake, laughing genuinely at the children's antics. This wasn't the calculated performance he'd witnessed at business functions. This was something else entirely. "You're good with them," he said later, as they cleaned up after the last guest had left. Emma had fallen asleep surrounded by her new treasures, exhausted but happy. Sophia shrugged, gathering paper plates. "Children are easier than adults. They don't have agendas. Even Emma. She's been trying to get you to move into her playhouse for weeks." A smile touched Sophia's lips. "Okay, some agendas are cuter than others." Ethan took the trash bag from her hands, their fingers brushing. "Thank you for today." It meant everything to her. Something shifted in Sophia's expression, a softening, a surrender. "Ethan, I..." His phone rang, interrupting whatever she'd been about to say. The hospital. Emma's doctor with test results. The world narrowed to the voice on the other end of the line, words like "unexpected complications" and "immediate admission" drowning out everything else. When he hung up, Sophia was already gathering Emma's overnight bag, her face set with determination. "My car is downstairs. We'll get there faster than an ambulance." In that moment, Ethan realized Sophia had become more than their arrangement. She had become their lifeline. The hospital waiting room became their home for 3 days. Sophia cancelled meetings, delegated decisions, and refused to leave even when Ethan insisted she should. "Your company can wait," she finished firmly, passing him another terrible cup of coffee. "Companies recover. People don't always get that chance." On the second night, with Emma finally stabilized but still unconscious, Sophia found Ethan in the hospital chapel, not praying but simply sitting in the silence. She sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "My father died when I was 12, she said quietly. Heart attack in the middle of a board meeting. My mother took over the company the next day. She wore black for a month and never mentioned him again." Ethan turned to look at her, seeing the pain she usually kept hidden. "I promised myself I'd never care about anyone that much," she continued. "It seemed safer to focus on the business, on things I could control." "And now?" he asked. Her hand found his in the dim light. "Now I'm terrified, sitting in a hospital for a little girl who isn't even mine, wondering how I'll survive if anything happens to her." She paused. "Or to you." The confession hung between them, more binding than any contract. "She's going to be okay," Ethan said, needing to believe it himself. "We all are." When Emma opened her eyes the next morning, Sophia was the one reading her favorite story aloud, while Ethan had finally succumbed to exhaustion in the chair beside them. Autumn painted the city in gold and crimson as Emma returned to school, her health improving steadily. The 6-month mark of their arrangement approached, though neither Ethan nor Sophia had mentioned it. Their pretend relationship had developed rhythms and routines that felt anything but fake: family dinners where they discussed their days, weekend outings to museums and parks, quiet evenings after Emma's bedtime when they talked about everything and nothing. Yet Ethan sensed Sophia pulling away again, retreating into longer work hours and business trips. Preparing for their inevitable separation, he assumed, ignoring the ache the thought produced. The invitation to her company's anniversary gala arrived with a handwritten note: "The board will be watching. One last performance. One last performance." The words stung more than they should have. The night of the gala, Ethan found himself once again in a borrowed tuxedo, watching Sophia work the room with effortless grace. She'd been distant all evening, playing her role perfectly but with a coldness he hadn't felt from her in months. "You two seem tense," observed Richard, one of the board members Ethan had met at previous events. "Trouble in paradise?" "Just tired," Ethan replied diplomatically. "Emma's school project kept us up late." Richard nodded, though his eyes remained calculating. "Sophia seems different since you came into her life. More human. The foundation is thriving under her leadership." "She was always human," Ethan said, more sharply than intended. "Some people just never bothered to notice." He excused himself, needing air and distance from the scrutiny. On the terrace, he found Sophia in conversation with a tall, distinguished man he didn't recognize. Her laughter, her real laughter, not the polished social one, carried across the space. Jealousy, unexpected and unwelcome, twisted in his chest. He turned to leave, but Sophia had already seen him. "Ethan. Come meet David. He's going to be handling Emma's case going forward." The man extended his hand. "Dr. David Chen. Sophia's told me so much about your daughter. Her case is fascinating from a research perspective. David's the best pediatric specialist in the country," Sophia explained. "He's agreed to oversee Emma's treatment personally." After the doctor left, Ethan confronted her. "You're making arrangements for Emma without discussing it with me?" Sophia's expression closed off. "I'm ensuring she has the best care after." She didn't finish the sentence. "After you're no longer obligated to care?" The words came out harsher than he intended. "That's not fair. Isn't it? Our 6 months are almost up. You've secured your position with the board. The foundation is a success. Mission accomplished, right?" Pain flashed across her face before her business mask slipped back into place. This was always temporary, Ethan. We both knew that. Did we? Because it stopped feeling temporary to me a long time ago. He stepped closer, voice lowering. And I think it did for you too. For a moment, vulnerability cracked her perfect facade. Then her phone chimed with a message, breaking the tension. Her face paled as she read it. It's Mrs. Garcia. Emma's fever is back. We need to go. The next week passed in a blur of hospital rooms and tests. Emma's condition had destabilized, her body rejecting the treatment that had seemed so promising. Dr. Chen proposed a new approach, experimental but with potential. Through it all, Sophia remained a constant presence, handling medical bills, consulting specialists, and sitting with Emma when Ethan needed to rest. Yet between them, an unspoken distance had grown, their almost confession at the gala hanging unresolved. On a rare evening when Emma was feeling better, Sophia arrived at the hospital with a portable projector and Emma's favorite movie. Hospital movie night, she announced, setting up the equipment while Emma clapped in delight. As animated characters danced across the sterile wall, Ethan watched Sophia's face in the flickering light. She'd removed her usual armor, the designer clothes and perfect makeup, wearing instead jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. You should go home and rest, he told her when Emma had fallen asleep halfway through the film. You have that important presentation tomorrow. Sophia shook her head. I rescheduled it. You never reschedule work. Her eyes met his. Some things are more important. The simple statement held more meaning than all their pretend affection at society events. Later that night, as they walked to the parking garage, the weight of unspoken words made the air heavy between them. Our 6 months ended last week, Ethan finally said. Sophia kept walking, her pace steady. I know. You haven't mentioned it. She stopped then, turning to face him under the harsh fluorescent lights. What do you want me to say, Ethan? That the contract is fulfilled? That we can go back to being strangers now? Is that what you want? What I want. She faltered, uncharacteristically uncertain. What I want doesn't matter. It never has. It matters to me, he said quietly. It matters to Emma. Sophia's composure cracked, her voice barely audible. I'm afraid. Of what? Of loving you both and losing you anyway. Of not being enough. Of being too much. She gestured helplessly. Of all of it. Ethan closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. Tonight at the hospital, watching you with Emma. I realized something. We stopped pretending months ago, didn't we? Hope and fear warred in her eyes. Ethan. I love you, he said simply. Not your money or what you can do for us. Just you, the woman who reads the same story 5 times because Emma asks, who works on her laptop at 3 a.m. so she can be there for school pickup, who tries so hard to hide how much she cares. Tears glistened in her eyes. I don't know how to do this. My parents never showed me. Neither did mine, he admitted. We'll figure it out together. In the unromantic setting of a hospital parking garage, Sophia Winters, the woman who controlled boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, trembled as Ethan cupped her face in his hands. Tonight, I'll make you mine, he murmured, echoing her words from their first meeting, but with entirely different meaning. For real this time. No contracts, no pretending. The kiss they shared wasn't their first, they'd performed that role convincingly for months. But it was the first honest one, vulnerable and imperfect and real. 1 year later. Emma's laughter echoed through the backyard of their new home, not Sophia's sterile penthouse or Ethan's small apartment, but a place they had chosen together. Her health had stabilized under Dr.